Hey guys, so I was just about to start some of my spring seedlings. They're going to be the first ones that are going to get out into the garden. And I thought it would be a really good time to talk about 12 seed starting mistakes that you could be making that could be decreasing your potential yields. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am Kiri Martin, and I'm just a city girl who wishes she was a country girl who is currently living in the burbs. And on this channel, we talk about all things micro homesteading, from growing indoors to growing outdoors, and a couple of other things along the way. So if that is your thing, or you want it to be your thing, then go ahead and hit subscribe and the notification bell so that you will know when I post videos in the future. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up because YouTube likes that, and then it helps me reach more people. Let's start finding out about those seed starting mistakes. Okay, so if you have watched any of my videos before, then you will know that we are in my crappy little kitchen, as it will be known from this point forward. The fact that my kitchen sucks really doesn't have anything to do about what we're going to talk about today, but I just felt the need to point it out. So, there. Don't mind the bird. That's Friar Tuck. He's quite excited right now. Are you done, Tucky? He's not done. Now he is. Okay. So, when you're growing your own food and when you are really getting into micro homesteading, then your seeds are everything because they're what is going to give you your future food. We want to make sure that we are avoiding any mistakes that could potentially cut down on our yields. Because there's nothing worse than starting all your seedlings and then to find them dead a few weeks later, and then it's still not the end of the world, but it can set you back in terms of what you're going to be able to grow, because part of the reason of starting your seeds indoors is to get a jump on the season and be able to grow more food. So let's take a look at my list of 12 things that could be hurting your yields. So let's take a look at number 1. Not washing your hands, which we should all be doing right now because of the whole COVID thing. But make sure that you're washing your hands. Your hands can be dirty, they can have bacteria on, the same reason that you want to be washing them and not touching your face because of COVID things. Make sure that your hands are clean so you're not transferring anything from your hands onto your seeds, because they're going to be very vulnerable when they're first starting. So we want to make sure we are doing everything to protect them. So number 1, wash your hands. Mistake number 2, starting the wrong seeds indoors or starting them at the wrong time. Certain plants are always going to grow better if you direct seed them outside. Yet there are other plants that they're not going to have enough time to reach maturity unless you start them indoors. This also goes back to reading your seed packages. This will be a good indication if the variety that you're looking at needs to be direct sown or when it should be started. So I know I like to say that you should break the rules and figure out what works for you in your own garden. I would suggest, if you're starting something new, to go by the directions and what they suggest. Do that first and then see how it works out for you, and then after that you can change it if you need to, push boundaries and see that. But if you're starting out for the first time, try and follow the rules and then break them after that if necessary. So mistake number 3 is not wetting down your seedling starting mix. This is important because then you know it's fully into the containers, and I talked about this in one of my Plant With Me videos. I'll link it above. And basically what this does is it lets you know that the medium that you're using to grow in is completely settled into the container that you're growing in. And even more important than that is when you put your seedlings in place and then you put some medium on top of them, you know they're not going to move around. So wetting down whatever medium that you're using to grow your seedlings is always a good idea before you put your seeds in. Number 4, not labeling, and not labeling correctly. So what do I mean? So if you don't label them, and I am guilty of this myself, you're like, oh, I'm going to remember what that is. If you get to the point of planting as many different varieties as I do, then there's no way you're going to remember it no matter what, unless you have a photographic memory, and then you'll probably remember. Everybody else should label their seedlings. There's lots of different things you could use for markers. Popsicle stick with pen on it. Not marker, I would use pen, but even those can wear off. You can get little plastic labels that will go in, and then you need to use a UV marker. Not a regular marker, not even a Sharpie. It needs to be a UV marker, because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to take them, you're going to plant them out, and if you leave the little labels there, they're going to get bleached by the sun, and then you're going to be back to not knowing what they are. So Basically, labeling is just important so you remember what you grew and where you put it. Mistake number 5, not enough light. So this is going to affect different seedlings in different ways, and some of them you can fix a little bit easier if this does happen. So basically, if plants are not getting enough light, they're going to turn into what we would call leggy seedlings. And those will be the long, stretched out ones because they are doing anything they can to get to the light. What you can do to avoid this is, in an ideal situation, get a grow light. I'll put down in the description below the one that I use, but you could use any one. There are just individual bulbs that you can get that can go into a lamp if you have it. It's not ideal, but there's different ones you can get at a huge varying array of price points. Now, if that is not in your budget, or if you're just getting started and you're not sure that you're going to want to continue doing this, then the best thing you can do is try and put the seedlings in a south-facing window, so they are right on the windowsill where they'll get enough light. They may still get a bit leggy, but it's the best that you're going to be able to do pretty much without a grow light. Now, if you are growing tomatoes and they get leggy, the great thing about tomatoes is you always want to plant them deep. On the tomato seedlings, you'll see there's almost little hairs on the stem, and pretty much all of those can turn into roots. So if your tomato seedling does get leggy, and even if it doesn't, it's always good when you're potting up or planting out that you plant them very deep, because then what that will do is it will cause them to put down more roots and to become a stronger plant. So if that happens, that's one of the things you can do, but ideally it would be best if you can get a grow light. Mistake number 6 is related to watering. Basically, the best way to water your seedlings is to bottom water. So what you're going to need is another tray. I have it on my trays right here. So there's a 2-piece. So there's the cells where all the seeds go, and then there is a solid tray underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour all of the water into the bottom tray. And what that's going to do is it's going to make sure that at all times the seedlings have water. As long as the water level is below the top of the soil, you should be okay and not have to worry about them getting waterlogged. This is important because seedlings, they're so delicate when they're starting out, and they can't really afford to have their roots get dry at any point, or that can kill them. And it's easy to get sidetracked and forget. I'm guilty of it myself, and the last thing you want to do is go in and again see your seedlings dead. The other thing that is a benefit of bottom watering, and I've talked about this before, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in my onion starting video. So another reason to bottom water is because it's going to help reduce the chances of you getting damping off. Damping off is death to seedlings. It's a soil-borne fungal disease. It tends to happen more when the plants are watered from above and the top of the soil is always very wet. So one of the things you can also do is you can cover them with vermiculite at the top, which can help, but the best thing you can do is to water from the bottom. Mistake number 7, not using an oscillating fan. So when you're starting seedlings indoors, they are not going to have the same things that they would have outdoors. Is one of the reasons we like to use a grow light, because it simulates the sun to give them the energy that they need to grow. What they also don't have when they're grown indoors is wind. And wind is important to help with air circulation, but also to help build strong stems. It can also be something that helps against leggy seedlings. It has to be oscillating because you don't want it just blowing constantly, but it's so they get the breeze passing over them. And that's going to trigger them to create stronger stems, which are going to make stronger, healthier plants. Mistake number 8. This one is the hardest for me. I'm not going to lie. And it is not thinning out your plants. You always tend to put more than one seed in any cell in case some of them don't germinate. Now, the only disclosure I'll have on this is unless you're doing multi-sowing, and then you're not going to want to thin them. This is something I'm trying this year for the first time. I'll be doing more posts on multi-sowing in the future as I see how it works for me. But assuming you're not multi-sowing, then you're going to want to make sure you're thinning your seeds. Why? Because otherwise they're competing with each other. So ideally what you do is you would go in and you would pinch off the weaker of the seedlings and keep the strong one. I tend to gently pull the straggler out, and I put it in another container. It's amazing how much they can keep growing, even if you only get a little root piece that comes out with it. So if that's what you're going to do, pull it out, just plant it, see it. If it doesn't make it, fine, but at least you give it a chance. And then, though, the only caveat I would give you is then you end up with twice or more than you originally planted. So make sure that you're going to have space to put them, because you don't want to crowd them, because then when they get out in the garden, because otherwise that's going to reduce your harvest as well. Or if you don't have enough space, you can always share them with other people so that they can start growing their own food too. So mistake number 9 is not keeping track of your information. So one thing that so many micro homesteaders overlook is data. Data may not be the first thing you think of when you think of gardening, but really the data is everything that you need to know what's going to work best for you and what's going to work with your garden. So it starts with seedlings, taking a note about what varieties you're growing, when you're sowing them, when you're planting them out, what containers you used, what seedling starting mix did you use. And it all goes to just gathering more information and figuring out what's ultimately going to be your way of doing things. And that way of doing things may change, but it's having that data and being able to look back at it that's going to help you grow as a gardener or to grow as a micro homesteader, and over time increase your yields. So if something didn't work, that's great. It's fine. It's a learning experience. So you can look at what you did and try something different, either later in the season or next season. So keeping track of what you're doing at all times is key. And it starts when you start your seedlings. Mistake number 10 is skipping hardening off. If you don't know what hardening off is, it's pretty much the process of getting your seedlings used to the real world when they've grown up in a cushy household environment. So this is getting them to gradually adapt to the strength of real sunlight, the strength of wind, as well as fluctuations in temperature. So this is probably one of the main failure points for newer gardeners, is skipping this step. They go through all the steps of starting their seeds, they put them outside, only to come back the next day and find most of them, maybe all of them, dead. So it takes time, and especially when you're excited and you want to get out and your seedlings look amazing and you want to plant them, it is so important to take the time to harden them off. It can be done in about a week. So it's not that much longer, but if you don't do this, it could seriously impact your harvest or your yields, because you'll lose so many plants. So I have a blog post on how to harden off your seedlings. I will go ahead and put that in the description below. But basically, it's gradually introducing them to the light, the wind, and the temperature. So you put them out for a few hours, you bring them in, and then the next day they go out for a little bit more. And it's just this gradual process of getting them used to the outside world. So mistake number 11. So this one is starting your seedlings only once. So many people think about starting their seedlings, getting them out into the garden. I know for most of us in Canada, that's the May 2-4 weekend. So that is typically what people do when they put it out there. But especially if you are a micro homesteader or want to be a micro homesteader, then that's not going to make the most of your garden space. And it's also it's maybe not even putting the plants out at their prime time. It's always a good idea to do a bit of research, to plan your garden. I'm going to have a month-to-month garden planner coming out really soon. Once it's out, I will put the link in the description below. That will help you basically plan out what goes out when, so that you can grow the most food that you can. And that also leverages putting things out when they grow best. If you're going to put lettuce out in the heat of summer, it's typically going to bolt, and then you're going to get bitter lettuce or not a lot of leaves. If you plant it out when it's cooler, you can be harvesting from that lettuce for a long period of time. Once you've planned out when is the best time to put out your seedlings, you're pretty much starting seedlings throughout the whole season. Now, the bulk of it may be early, just coming out of winter, so that you have the bulk of things ready to go after the last frost date. But then there's another big push that you should have to go out in the late summer so that you can have your fall garden. But even in between there's going to be things that have matured, that have been harvested, and then you'll have a spot where you can plant something new. So the best thing that you can do, and the best way to leverage that space, is to know when you're starting your other seedlings, so that they're going to be ready. So when that space becomes available, you can pop in a transplant, and then you've already jump started that to getting to maturity. So definitely, starting seedlings once is another big mistake. All right, and the number 12 mistake for starting seedlings is not starting at all. Either not trusting yourself or not thinking that you have the space. There's always space to grow some food, even if it's in a container, in a little corner of your garden. There's always going to be some space where you can grow some food and just be a little bit more self-sufficient. A lot of new gardeners feel a bit overwhelmed with everything, but in reality, a package of seeds is pretty cheap. You can get them from about $3 to $6, probably more if you're going for some more special varieties. But for $3, you're gonna get a ton of seeds. So even if you try and fail, like there's that learning experience, and it's gonna be cheaper than going to get whatever that package of seeds is that you bought from the grocery store. So a package of lettuce seeds costs like say $2.50, $3. You go to the grocery store, a single lettuce is gonna cost you $2 or $3. So in a package of seeds, you're gonna get like hundreds of lettuce seeds. So there's so many opportunities in that single package to start, to learn, to try. So if you're holding back, if you're watching this video because you want to start growing and you're not sure that you can, trust me, please go out, buy the seeds, start with lettuce, start with radishes, something easy, and put it in and just try. I really don't think you'll be disappointed, and there'll be so much that you can learn, and it's just such an awesome feeling to grow your own food, to know that its whole lifespan, where it came from, especially when you get a little bit more into gardening and you start saving your own seeds, and then you're kind of in control of the entire process. Well, except for what Mother Nature controls, which is everything else. But at least you're fully vested in where your food comes from. And you know that it's going to be quality, that it's an amazing feeling. So please, please, please try. So that is my list of the top 12 seedling starting mistakes that could be impacting your yield. So hopefully you guys finish your song. Okay guys, so that's it. That's my list of the top 12 seed starting mistakes that could be impacting your yields. So I really hope that you found that helpful. If you did, again, give it a thumbs up. And now I have to go and actually plant some of my own seeds. I'm gonna go get that done, and I will see you next time. But until then, always remember that gardening is a journey, and it's about learning what works best for you and your garden. So until next time, make food grow.